Ahead on this week's edition of the CFL Report, the Commissioner's State of the League Address. BC and Winnipeg, our choice for Game of the Week. And Leif Pedersen picks the Week 7 winner. TSN CFL Report. It's our game around here, brought to you by Carling O'Keefe Brewery. Hello everyone, I'm John Wells. Welcome to TSN CFL Report. Week 6, another disaster for the Stampeders. Sunday's loss to the Argos makes it 6 in a row. The natives are restless in Calgary. Happier times in Hamilton and Toronto after weekend victories. The Argos made it 3 in a row, but still stand second in the Eastern Division to Winnipeg. The Bombers are 4-1 and lead the East by a point. The Tiger Cats move to third, a point back of the Argos. Ottawa is 2 back of Hamilton. And in the West, it's the Lions and the Eskimos even in points, but BC has a game in hand. Saskatchewan 5 points back, but still 1 ahead of the struggling Stampeders. The highlights of Week 6 coming up. But first, another chapter from Peter Watt's CFL Notebook.
Thank you, John. A lot of people in Calgary were wondering why the Stampeder board took more than 5 hours for its meeting on Tuesday night. Given the team's 1-6 record, many thought a coaching change was inevitable, but that in fact did not happen. Instead, the board took a long, hard look at the team's budget and determined to pare down expenditures for the rest of the season. General Manager Earl Lunsford was adamant that the team is not folding and that it will continue to operate with the current cast of players and coaches. In Edmonton, meanwhile, there are more cries for the head of Saskatchewan defensive lineman James Curry. The latest incident flared last Saturday night during the game between the Rough Riders and the Eskimos when Curry allegedly delivered a late hit on quarterback Matt Dunnigan. Dunnigan was when asked for his response, tried to be diplomatic.
I know Commissioner Mitchell is seeing the same things we're seeing, and I think, you know, it's in his hands, and I'm not going to put the hammer on anybody. You know, I'm going to leave it in his court. That's his job.
For his part, number 78 says he's the victim of a witch hunt, even though the Eskimos are the third team this year to complain about the way Curry plays the game. Curry has already been suspended twice and fined once following injuries to quarterbacks. His latest suspension and fine is being appealed later this month.
If I want to injure a ball player, it's nothing hard to do about injuring a ball player, but, you know, I face the same risk if I was to do that to somebody else, so I'm not out there trying to injure anyone.
The next step in this dispute is a hearing scheduled for sometime in the next 10 days before a CFL arbitrator. Curry has been fined $2,500 and suspended a game, and he has appealed. And the fine, by the way, is the largest ever handed out in CFL history. He will either serve the penalty or he will be let off. But in either case, I doubt that we've heard the last of this issue. As we look ahead to Week 7, there are some individuals you should keep an eye on in upcoming games. Winnipeg quarterback Tom Clemens needs 33 completions to pass Dieter Brock for number 2 place on the CFL's all-time list. Only Ron Lancaster is ahead of him. Stuart Hill has 18 quarterback sacks last year. He has 12 already in the first 6 games of this current season. And the Argonauts' Darryl Smith only had 2 touchdowns last year. He has 5 already this season, 1 short of last year's team record, held jointly by Paul Pearson and Chris Woods. And Ottawa's Dean Dorsey has kicked 20 consecutive field goals dating back to last season. He did not get an opportunity to kick 1 in the Riders' last start in BC a week ago Saturday. And so Don's sweet string of 21 consecutive field goals is on the line this Sunday when the Rough Riders play host to Calgary. I'm Peter Watts. That's CFL Notebook.
Thanks, Peter. A little later on the CFL Report, Commissioner Doug Mitchell. And just ahead, the stars and the highlights from Week 6 in the CFL.
The CFL on TSN. Next up, the Argos go west to try their luck against BC's finest. The Argos know what it's like to win in the Lions' den, but this year it won't come easy. Lions' defensive core are proving to be one of the league's toughest. Don't miss action, only the CFL delivers. The Toronto Argonauts and the BC Lions live from BC Place Thursday, August 13th at 10 p.m. Eastern. CFL blackouts are in effect, so check your local listings.
Welcome back to the CFL Report on TSN. Still to come, the stars of the week. Right now, the highlights of Week 6. And first to Friday's action, a battle of two great defenses at Ivor Wynne in Hamilton. This one close from start to finish. Third quarter, BC goes on top as Roy DeWalt fakes out everyone before throwing to a wide-open Jim Sandusky. A 31-yard scoring strike, 17-13 Lions. Less than 3 minutes later, the Hamilton defense comes through. Veteran Ben Zambiazzi picking off DeWalt and returning it 22 yards before bulling his way into the end zone. That put the Tiger Cats back into the lead at 20-17. Lupus Aglia tied the game midway through the fourth quarter. His second field goal of the night, this one from 37 yards away. Saglia leads the league in scoring points with 67. And late in the game, Ticat kicker Bernie Ruoff attempts a 48-yard field goal. It sails wide, but goes for a single. Ruoff disappointed, but that's enough as the Tiger Cats hold on for a 21-20 win. Saturday in Edmonton, Saskatchewan Roughriders in tough against the hometown Eskimos. Midway through the second quarter, the Esks try some razzle-dazzle with the old fake field goal trick. Stuart Hill well covered, but manages to haul in Matt Dunnigan's pass. That made it 18-3 Eskimos. One bright spot for Saskatchewan, this field goal by Dave Ridgway. It gives him 160 for his career, passing Jack Evanshan for top spot on the all-time Rough Rider list. Another milestone third quarter as Damon Allen and Brian Kelly team up for a 54-yard scoring strike. That's career touchdown number 88 for Kelly, tying him with former teammate Tom Scott for number 1 on the all-time list. The Eskimos in front 31-9. Give the Riders credit for not giving up. They pulled to within 3 as Tom Burgess hit Todd Brown, but the Eskimos get a late touchdown and win it by 10, 38-28. Finally to McMahon Stadium in Calgary for Sunday's game between the Argonauts and the Stampeders. Calgary coach Bob Vespasiani decided to start Carl Fodor at quarterback, but Fodor's very first pass intercepted by Reggie Pleasant. That led to a Gil Finnerty touchdown and an early 7-0 Argo lead. Rick Johnson came off the bench. His luck no better. Johnson threw 3 interceptions, including 2 to safety Rick Ryan. The Toronto offense had no such problems. The Argos scored at will. Slot back Darryl Smith accounting for a pair of touchdowns. This one from backup quarterback John Conjemi. The Argos led 23-0 at the half and coasted to an easy 32-13 win. 6 straight losses for the Stampeders, and the heat is definitely on for Bob Vespasiani in Calgary. The Stamps desperate for a victory in Ottawa this week. More on that game and the other matchups for Week 7 with Leif Pettersson a little later on. Right now, the TSN Players of the Week.
4-yard.
Friday night in Hamilton, Ticat linebacker Ben Zambiazzi led an aggressive Hamilton defense against the Lions. The 9-year veteran from Georgia Tech made 8 tackles and returned an interception for a touchdown. Zambiazzi led the Cats past the Lions by 1. From Sunday's game in Edmonton, wide receiver Brian Kelly, another typically Kelly Green day. Besides catching 3 passes for 132 yards, Kelly also tied a CFL record by catching his 88th career touchdown pass. And finally, from Sunday's game in Calgary, the Argos have to be excited about the play of quarterback Gilbert Renfro. The sophomore quarterback looked sharp, completing 19 of 26 for 243 yards and a touchdown. The Argos won their 3rd in a row. The Canadian players of Week 6 in the CFL coming up, as well as a few words from the commissioner. This is the CFL Reports on TSN. I'm John Wells. Welcome back to the CFL Report on TSN. Still ahead, Leif Pettersson picks the Week 7 winners. Here now, TSN's Canadian player for Week 6. Our runner-up, Nelson Martin of the BC Lions.
And read the throw. Has it.
Martin, a graduate of Seneca College, was Johnny on the spot as he chipped in with an interception, a fumble recovery, and a sack in a close game against the Tiger Cats. TSN's outstanding Canadian for Week 6 goes to Toronto Rover Rick Ryan. The two-year veteran from Weber State had 3 tackles and added a pair of interceptions to stymie the Stampeders' scoring drives. The Argo defense held Calgary to just 13 points. Toronto's Rick Ryan, TSN's outstanding Canadian in Week 6. The 87 CFL season got off to a shaky start when the Montreal Alouettes folded. The league was forced to juggle the schedule and move the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to the Eastern Division. It hasn't been easy at league headquarters. Today, a few thoughts from Commissioner Doug Mitchell on the state of the CFL heading into Week 7.
Doug, the CFL Board of Governors meeting was a week ago. What was on the agenda, and were there any significant developments that will affect the future of the CFL?
Well, Mark, I think we decided earlier in the season we're going to meet more frequently from the Board of Governors standpoint. And we took a financial update on all the clubs so far in the season, looked at attendance where Ottawa, Toronto, Hamilton, Saskatchewan are up. Winnipeg thinks they'll be up in the next week or so after their next home game. So we looked at the attendance. We also looked at the financial impact of some of the clubs. And we also looked at the 1988 season, scheduling it when the season will start, whether there'll be more or fewer interlocking games. I think we all agreed unanimously that the season will start later than it has in the past. Nobody liked to start the season the latter part of June. We'd like to move it right back to the end of July if we could, but realistically we won't start any earlier than mid-July next year.
Were there any other surprises that came out of the meeting?
Not really. I don't think everybody's looking at it on the standpoint of, you know, we brought in some financial restraints this year. Where are we? Has it helped us? Has it hurt us? And I think the general analysis was that even though we're watching our dollars more closely than in the past, the quality of product on the field has been tremendous this year. The games have been very competitive. A lot of them have come down to the last couple of minutes. So from that standpoint, I think everybody felt we're off to a very good start.
You mentioned the ball is exciting. Ottawa is playing well in the East. Could you go from East to West for me and maybe discuss a little bit of the financial situation in each of the cities?
Well, Mark, as you know, we don't have the large television contract that we've had in the past, so every club had to look at on the basis of what financials or restraints they could exercise to make sure they preserve the longevity of the league. And I think Ottawa's up in attendance. They're not where they want to be. They've improved on the field. They think they'll get better. And I think as they get better, they'll attract even more people. So from that standpoint, I think Ottawa has improved. Toronto is way up in attendance. Hamilton is up. Both of them, I don't think they've ever been had a winning record against the Western teams after the first 20 or 22 games of the year, and they both do have this year. So Winnipeg expects to be up after their next game. Saskatchewan is way up. I think they've gotten over their financial restraint, but there's their problems, but they've still got some matters to overcome. Edmonton, BC are fine. Calgary, I think, are struggling with their product on the field at the moment.
Calgary isn't off to a great start this season, so in light of the fact that they were on the brink of disaster before the 1986 season, can they continue to do as poorly as they are now and be expected to be in the league in 1988?
I don't think there's any doubt about it. That's one of the reasons for the meeting, to get ready with our financial projections. I met with Earl Lunsford and Vern Siemens, the president of Stampeders, yesterday for about 3 hours looking at where they were in order to ensure their operation of the club, and they're already preparing for the 1988 season, but they're living under very severe financial restraints, and I think that's good for the league.
And hopefully the Stampeders can turn their season around before too long. As mentioned earlier, the game of the week is a showdown of the top 2 teams, East and West. BC at Winnipeg on Saturday. We have 2 reports to set up the game. The first is from Dave Pratt with the Lions.
Thanks, John. The hottest rivalry in the CFL for most of this decade has been the one between the Lions and the Bombers. Since 1983, these 2 teams have met in the playoffs every year. 3 out of the last 4 years in the Western Final. Translated, it means one of these teams has managed to end the season for the other 4 years in a row. The league would call that a great Canadian tradition. But on the field, the players have a different way of expressing themselves.
That's why they don't have microphones on the players, because if you heard what was going on in the trenches there, it'd be pretty wild. If somebody doesn't get away with a dirty shot, it's pretty quiet, but if the dirty shots start going and people start getting mouthing off, then the game really starts heating up.
That's just part of it, you know. Our offensive line doesn't get along with their defensive line and vice versa, so it's you know, it's interesting every time we play them, and like I said, it's fun. You know, it's always a tough game, and but you got to look at it. It's a great competition, and when you're playing the best, you know, it's always going to be fun.
Last season, the Bombers were shut down in BC Place, and the last word went to the Lions.
Second down pass complete to Fernandez. Gets away from one tackle from Cook. He'll score.
Last year we beat them 4 games in a row in which, and I know that they want revenge against us. And with us, we'll take a win any kind of way, we can get it.
Since then, the Bombers have been moved from the Western Division to the Eastern. On paper, that would appear to take away some of the importance of this game for the Lions. But as Jackson is quick to point out, the game is not played on paper.
It's still BC Lions playing Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and we're playing back there. It goes back a long time. Like you said, we've always had tough and rough games playing with Winnipeg, and it doesn't matter they're in the East. They still are on the West, this side, so it's a tough game.
Should indeed these two teams meet again for the 5th year in a row in the playoffs, it will have to be in the Grey Cup game. And now with a look at the Bombers, here's Ron Deacock in Winnipeg.
Thank you, Dave. This Saturday's BC-Winnipeg showdown is a battle of division leaders. They have identical 4-1 records, and both are coming off of losses. The only difference is Winnipeg has been idle for 2 weeks.
We've had a chance for our injuries to get better. We've had a few guys, not major injuries, but ankles like Nick Bastaya and hamstring like Kenny Haley. Feel like that's been a positive deal for those guys to have some time.
The Bombers will be put to a severe test on both sides of the ball. Their normally stingy defense was stung for 42 points by Edmonton in their last outing. In the Lions, they'll face an offense that has given up the least turnovers to date.
Yeah, we're going to have to get after BC. I think we faltered against Edmonton, but against BC, I think with the way DeWalt sits in there, we're going to have to pressure him from the outside and in the inside.
The Lions don't give up the ball very often.
No, they don't, but that's because Roy likes to throw it away. But I think if we get to him and and harass him, I think we'll get the ball a few times.
Winnipeg will also have to contend with Jim Sandusky, who's done an admirable job replacing the departed Merv Fernandez. To counter, 2-time All-Canadian defensive back Ken Haley, who missed the last 2 games, returns to the lineup.
I don't think you can ever forget about Merv Fernandez, but Jim Sandusky is an excellent receiver. Even when Merv was here, he was doing a lot of things. He's probably being used a little bit more since Merv is gone. We'll have some double coverages on him, and I'm sure if we do what we can, we'll stop Sandusky's game.
Preventing the Lions from scoring is a tough task. Scoring against them is even tougher. They've allowed just 56 points in 5 games. And to top it off, the Bombers' offense has sputtered lately.
I think they really strive on making interceptions and fumbles and doing something after they do those type of things. So we're going to have to eliminate the turnovers offensively. Then once we get into scoring territory, we need to put some points on the scoreboard. Not just 3 points all the time, but touchdowns.
Try to give them variety, I think, and we're going to probably be, very much aware of throwing the ball quickly. And, I think it's just important that you mix some things up and don't give them one thing that they can tee off on. They have good pass rushers. They have great team speed on defense. And I think the most important thing for us is to mix some things up. Don't just sit back in one place to throw the ball.
There's also a little revenge factor in this contest. The Bombers lost all 4 meetings with the Lions last year, including the Western semifinal. Ron Deacock for CFL Report. Now back to you, John.
Thanks, Ron. Little doubt about it. BC and Winnipeg will be the game of Week 7 in Canadian football. Could this be, Leif Pettersson, a game that sets up the Grey Cup of 1987?
Well, it's a little early in the season to be thinking Grey Cup, but certainly 2 teams that definitely have a chance to be there. I think the interesting thing about this game, John, is both teams are coming off losses, and I tell you, I can't remember Winnipeg losing 2 games at home in a row.
Both teams going into the weekend action at 4-1. Both teams went unbeaten through their first 4 games. Were they as good as their records indicated through the first 4 weeks?
I think they certainly were. BC, especially defensively. Winnipeg played well, both sides, football, offense, defense. But I think BC has to be a little concerned with their offense. They have not scored a lot of points lately. They've had receiving troubles through injuries. And I think if that receiving trouble continues, they're going to have some problems.
The Bombers coming off a layoff, and Tom Clements not exactly that brilliant in his last outing against the Eskimos.
Well, the Eskimos put a lot of pressure on him, and it was not a great night for Tommy, but he'll come back. They've got a great offense, and I don't think Mike Riley's overly concerned about that. I know I'm not. They're still the team that I'm picking, and I see no reason to change now.
All right, we'll be back to pick the Week 6 winners on the CFL Report right after this. Welcome back to the CFL Report on TSN. Time to pick a few winners. Look ahead to Week 7. First, let's look back to Week 6. You had a not bad week.
Oh, it was a good weekend. 2 out of 3. I lost the BC Hamilton game, and it drives me crazy because they won on a missed field goal single point. That rule should have been out 5 years ago. They've still got it. I got nightmares over that.
Now, you wouldn't have minded if Bernie Ruoff punted for the winning point.
No, punting is a good offensive play. Get the single point. If you're going to win it that way, fine, but missed field goal, no.
And the overall record for Leif Pettersson in 1987, 16-6-1. I haven't quite figured out the percentage, but it's not bad.
That's not bad. I'm picking a lot of winners here.
All right. Let's pick some for Week 7, and we'll look ahead to Edmonton in Toronto. Could there be an upset here? I would think that the Eskimos should win.
Well, Eskimos will be favored because of their record and because of Matt Dunnigan and his group, but I think there could be an upset. Toronto's playing pretty good football. Now they've won 3 in a row. 2 have been against Calgary. Everybody's beating Calgary, so that's not a big deal. But I think Toronto's really coming together. Renfro and Kangemi, I like that tandem, and I think there's room for optimism, but Edmonton definitely favored.
And I think that the Argonaut defense has played some pretty good football lately as well.
They have. Gerald Bayless came back and played well on the weekend, and their defensive secondary now, group's been together for 3 games. They're starting to play a lot better, too. Getting some interceptions, which they didn't get early in the year.
Let's check out the X's, Edmonton and Toronto this weekend, and Leif Pettersson calls it even in the rushing department. Passing goes to the Eskimos, front 7 of the Eskimos. Secondary is even as well, and special teams to Chomik and Hank Olisic.
Yeah, I think Hank and Lance form a great duo, but, you know, as you see the X's there, it is pretty even, but the slight edge goes to Edmonton, even though they're coming down to Toronto to play.
Saturday, the BC Lions and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at Winnipeg Stadium. The Bombers don't lose at home very often, so obviously you like the Blue Bombers.
Well, I mean, I've liked them since day one, and they've had a week off. They're going to be healthy. BC, who knows who's going to play for them this weekend. They've got receiving problems, as we just talked a few minutes ago, and I think Winnipeg definitely favored at home. I can't remember when they've lost 2 in a row.
It's been a long time since the Bombers have lost twice in a row at home. They lost to the Eskimos last week. Here's how Leif Pettersson sees it. Check out the X's all down the right-hand side in the top 3 categories. Rushing, passing in the front 7, even in secondary and in special teams. Now, that BC Lion defense is pretty tough, and you don't like their front 7?
Well, I like their front 7, but I really like Winnipeg's better. The linebacking crew of Ty Jones, James West, and the rest of the fellas are just tremendous football players, and they make a lot of things happen, create a lot of turnovers. BC does as well, but I just give a little edge to Winnipeg. Now, I know Donnie Matthews and Joe Galad won't want to hear that, but I'm doing the show, not them.
All right, the final game, Week 7, a critical game for the Calgary Stampeders. They take on the Ottawa Rough Riders. Now, there should be a chance for the Stampeders to jump out of it here against Ottawa.
Well, you would think so. I mean, they got to win one sooner or later. They lost 6 in a row, and things are not looking great. You know, I think Vespasiani would have been gone a long time ago, but they don't want to pay 2 head coaching salaries, so he's still there, and there's just a tremendous lack of enthusiasm on that team.
Turnovers have hurt the Calgary Stampeders all season long, the games we've done here on TSN and again this weekend.
Yeah, this past weekend, Toronto feasted on turnovers. They scored a lot of points through the turnover area, and Calgary just cannot seem to do anything right, and I don't know. If they're going into Ottawa, and that's the best place they could want to go to play, but I still think Ottawa at home will be favored.
All right, let's check it out. Here's how Leif Pettersson sees it. Rushing is dead even. Passing goes to the Ottawa Rough Riders along with the front 7. Secondary to the Calgary Stampeders. Special teams to the Ottawa Rough Riders. So Leif Pettersson takes the Ottawa Rough Riders in this one at Lansdowne this weekend.
I have to. Calgary struggled, and on the weekend, if there was a sign that maybe they were coming out of it, I'd say, well, this is a pretty even game, but they just played abysmally, and I suspect it's going to continue.
All right, we'll check it out next week and see how Leif Pettersson has improved his record on the CFL Report. Join us again in 7 days. TSN CFL Report. It's our game around here, brought to you by Carling O'Keefe Brewery.